But the last one I said machines. And basically what machines is just the word I'm using, but it's basically anything created. So it can be an actual creation, an actual droid, a Terminator. It can be something like that. It can also be more of a Gollum-like creature. Creature created from some sort of mysticism. Pinocchio. Pinocchio would fall under this category. He's obviously not, well, he's sort of a machine. He's built as a wooden puppet, at first. So something like that. And these types of created beings, usually there's a little bit of a kinship to zombies with them in the fact that they usually turn around and end up some sort of judgment, being a judgment on us. Usually they're created as slaves, right? Androids or whatever. Think about, I don't know if you guys seen the Animatrix, which was a really good collection of short animated features set within the Matrix universe. Wasn't crazy about the Matrix sequels myself, but the Animatrix was really good. And there's one or two of them that tell the story of how it happened and how the AI turned, how they were mistreated at first and how they ended up turning on mankind until the point where they enslaved them to use them for the electricity and whatnot. So that was a great example of this. So yeah, they can be used as they created as slaves at first. And Star Wars does a great job with this. Droids are created for a sort of a utilitarian effect, and yet all of our good guys, all of our heroes see droids as more than just that. They do see a sentient being within there somehow. It's interesting how that plays out in the Star Wars universe. I like I said, I've been playing the Star Wars Old Republic game, and you do have a T3 something. I forget the name of the number designation of the droid, but a little sort of astromech droid who becomes a really you guys' own personality, becomes a friend to your character and whatnot. And there's also another arc in which you have to go hunt down a droid who's become sentient and join this like droid movement against human beings or whatever. So you have different levels of it, I guess. But yeah, the sentience doesn't always have to be now they're the bad guy thing. I mean, you've got 3PO, R2D2 and stuff like that. You've got good droids created for some sort of service. I don't know if you guys remembered that wonderful show. I used to love it growing up, Small Wonders. You remember that, where the guy created an android? I think did they name her Lisa? I forget what they named her, but she was an android little girl. So it was a little girl actress playing her. And he was testing her out. He's testing out the mechanics of it and testing out her software. So he wanted to treat her as though she was a real girl. So they had to pretend that she was a real girl they found and were adopting. And they were trying to like convince the social workers of that and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys ever watched that. That was a good show, though. That was an interesting exploration of this idea. There was even a Disney Sunday night original movie, had Alan Thicke, but he created some boy, like a teenage boy or whatever, as a brother to his daughter or something like that. It was interesting. So that kind of idea of droids are sort of a created being, again, mystic type of created beings, Gollums and such. Wall-E, Wall-E's a machine in this instance. Frankenstein would be example of a created being. And when you create a being, there's that wonderful, wonderful scene. The mountaintop scenes in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is really something. This is a little bit of an aside, but I'll go on it anyway. Mary Shelley, of course, the famous story is that Mary Shelley, her husband, or not quite husband at the time, I think, or were they married? I forget if they were married at the time, but Percy Shelley, the poet, Lord Byron, and then one of their friends, John Polidori, they were all vacationing in Europe. I think it was Switzerland, and they were held up in this sort of castle for the weekend, and there was a storm, but they'd all been going to visit this one particular mountain. And I forget the mountain's name right now because I think it was called Mount Blanc in one of Percy's poems. But you see each of that night where they were held up in the night in the storm there, they dared each other to write a ghost story and try and scare each other. Lord Byron told a vampire story that John Polidori later embellished and wrote down, and that Bram Stoker used for inspiration for Dracula. Of course, Mary Shelley wrote the beginnings of her Frankenstein story on that weekend. Percy Shelley wrote his poems and whatnot about the mountain. But that mountain they were all going to visit all had a integral part to play in a lot of their writings from that period. For Mary Shelley's part, you've got that wonderful scene in Frankenstein when the creature confronts Dr. Frankenstein at that mountain crevice. Like he's brought him up there, and they're confronting him in the in the cave or something like that on the mountain. I forget the exact aspects of the setting, but then they quote and they make references to Paradise Lost. And you've got the monster asking Dr. Frankenstein, did I ask to be created? Did I call out to you, from I didn't ask for these struggles that you've thrust upon me. I didn't ask for these, these passions within me. I don't know what to do with them. And you abandoned me and you didn't teach me, and these kinds of things. So it's really, and you can think about the humanity and the human struggles behind that. Okay, in everyday life, we're not creating other life. We're not creating sentient beings, obviously, in everyday life. But children, right? Parents' responsibility to their children. No matter what the circumstances, a child didn't ask to be born into this world. So you have responsibility to care for the child and help them along through all of these things that they're going to have thrust upon them and whatnot. You can think of it in different angles too, or different contexts. Teachers for students. I mean, the students are there, so there's a certain element of asking for something, but they receive this knowledge. You're teaching it to them. You do have a responsibility to guide them in terms of what to do with the knowledge. Now, some teachers take that way too far, of course, and try to preach and get into the child's or the student's head and make sure that they're thinking just the way they want them to think and whatnot. But you do have an aspect of responsibility, even as a teacher and stuff. So you can take it in a couple different ways. One aspect of the machine is they often come back to guide or protect or do something to your human characters in which they show that they've sort of risen above their limited humanity that was thrust upon them on their creation. Think about Terminator 2, when the Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, that model comes back to save Sarah Connor and her son and stuff like that. So different elements like that.